Hi everyone, it's Patrick from Shift4. In today's video, we'll discuss APMs, also known as alternative payment methods, and why offering more payment methods can help your business grow and improve checkout conversion. Watch to find out more. It's not surprising that more and more businesses are attempting to reach global audiences. But this growth strategy presents a new challenge. These businesses must learn to address diverse customer preferences during their checkout experience. This is where alternative payment methods, or APMs, come in. As the name implies, APMs are an alternative to traditional card payments. However, the expression alternative might be misleading, since in some countries, they are even more popular than traditional card payments. Some examples of this include Ideal in the Netherlands, there's Blik in Poland, and Bancontact in Belgium, not to mention Apple Pay and Google Pay, which are available worldwide. In general, there are two groups of alternative payment methods: redirect-based. Here, the user is redirected to an external URL to complete payment after charge creation. And Apple Pay, Google Pay. The browser displays a native payment sheet on top of the browser window prior to charge creation. The entities that take part in the payment process with the use of alternative payment methods will include the customer, the merchant, Shift4, and the payment method provider. Now let's see how the redirect-based APM process looks like. For the vast majority of redirect-based payment methods, the process is as follows. The customer clicks buy on the merchant's website, goes to the payment page, and chooses the payment method they want. 2, the checkout page automatically adjusts and the customer puts their data into the relevant fields. Usually it's just their name, but payment methods require sometimes additional information to be provided. 3, the charge is created and the customer is redirected to the payment method website, where they must authorize the payment or skip it if the customer changes their mind. The authorization varies depending on the payment method. It can be done via a passcode, a random digit code generated by the payment method provider, by logging into the customer account, etc. And 4, once the payment is processed, the customer is redirected to the previously defined URL, which the merchant defines when integrating a particular payment method, and the merchant can check the payment status. To ensure that the return URL is linked to the particular payment, Shift4 adds an additional parameter called Client Object ID to the URL. The addition of that tracking code allows the merchant to check the payment status without the need to go to their backend. Instead, they can do it hassle-free directly in the browser with Shift4's SDK. The client object ID can be used securely in the browser with the public key without the risk of data exposure, since it exposes the charge result and not the charge data. The process we just outlined works for redirect-based payment methods. Yet Apple Pay and Google Pay work differently. They both display native payment sheets on top of the user's browser window. Assuming the customer accepts the payment, they can authenticate purchases in several ways. For Apple Pay, they can authenticate by looking at the screen for Face ID verification, entering a passcode, placing their finger on the touchpad ID sensor, or double-clicking the side button of their Apple Watch. For Google Pay, transactions require a Google PIN, pattern, passcode, or screen unlock for authentication. They can also be verified via a security code sent by Google. Please bear in mind that for Google Pay transactions, a 3DS verification is added automatically when necessary. This usually occurs for PAN-only tokens, transactions processed via desktop browsers. Thanks to our SDK, a merchant doesn't have to bother if the 3DS pop-up window should be displayed or if it's already incorporated in the payment process. This is the case for 3DS cryptogram tokens, transactions processed via Android system, mobile apps, or mobile browsers. Speaking of tokens, it's worth noting that both Apple Pay and Google Pay payment methods are connected with debit or credit cards, so they replace the original card data with tokens. This protects the original card numbers from being used during transactions. Note that to be able to pay with Apple Pay though, several conditions have to be met. The customer must have a compatible device with the latest version of iOS or iPadOS, watchOS, or macOS, and that device must have Touch ID or Face ID. Plus, the customer must be signed in to their Apple device with their Apple ID. The use of Safari browser is required as well. No other browser works for Apple Pay. And even though the requirements for Google Pay use are much lower, for example, Google Pay API supports various browsers like Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Apple Safari, and more, this payment method is still less popular than Apple Pay. So what do merchants need to know about APMs? Payment methods support certain currencies and countries. Merchants should identify relevant payment methods based on their business model and their customer's geography. Every payment method has specific requirements and/or additional restrictions that merchants must comply with. These may refer to marketing guidelines, restricted businesses, handling disputes, and refunds. Merchants should check relevant documentation and payment terms before incorporating a new payment method. In addition, no sensitive data is collected during the payment process with APMs. No tokenization is necessary when the payment is made, except for Apple Pay and Google Pay, which both use their own tokens. And every single payment needs to be confirmed, thus, APMs don't work for recurring payments. So let's move on to APMs integration. When thinking about expanding businesses to reach a global audience, merchants must provide customers with country-specific alternative payment methods. With Shift4, this is easy to do because our APMs integration process is hassle-free. With the help of our SDK, all payment methods supported by Shift4 can be added in one installable package. Then the merchant decides which payment method should go live to customers and which should be hidden for future use. The merchant has the ability to adjust their checkout to accommodate the requirement of a particular payment method provider. Detailed information on which attributes are required and which are optional are provided in Shift4 documentation. As you can see in this example here, the tax identification number is required to initiate this particular payment method. But please keep in mind that what the merchant receives from Shift4 is the JS code responsible for a particular web page behavior. For example, refreshing and displaying the payment status to the user. Our code doesn't interfere with the visual side delivered by an alternative payment method provider. And each time the payment method is created, the merchant receives via webhooks the JSON response providing detailed information as presented here. They see what payment type it is, when it was made, the name of the customer, etc. And a similar process takes place when the charge is created. At a later stage, the merchant is also notified of the payment method status. And the possible values could be, in this case, chargeable, the payment method is ready to use to create a charge, failed, setup process of the payment method failed, pending, payment method requires some action defined by flow property and payment method object. For example, 3DS authorization. Used. Payment method was already charged and cannot be reused. And after creating the charge with the use of the chargeable payment method, its status can be one of the following three. You can have successful, the payment was completed successfully. Pending, the payment is being processed and flow property describes the next required action. Or failed, the payment has failed. And if the charge status is pending, the flow property defines what will happen with the payment in the next step. Here are some options. Redirect. The client can be redirected to the URL specified by the merchant. Wait. The payment is being processed. And none. The payment was successfully made or failed. The merchant receives this information via our webhooks to make sure they have full and immediate control over the payment process. As you can see, Shift4 makes it easy for your business to integrate and accept popular alternative payment methods that are best suited to your business needs and customer preferences. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. For more information about Shift4 payment solutions, visit our website or contact us with your questions.